with the ever-increasing amount of anime released each and every season, it gets harder and harder to keep track and watch all the anime you want to watch. It's so easy to miss one or two which might have turned into your favorites, and I'm here today to help you with that. And what better way to do that than a tier list ranking every new anime that is being released this season. Now, before getting into it, I will have to give a few disclaimers. This video will only feature full-length, non-sequel series. So no sequels like Spy Family and Uma Musume, and also no short form series with only 5 or 10 minutes per episode. I have double and triple checked to see if I've included everything, so if I've missed something, I do apologize. Also, since we are only partway through the season, I obviously can't rank these seasons based on their entire runtime. So, for fairness sake, even though a bunch of these have already released a second or even third episode, I will rank them based on only their first episode. If you want me to do the same video for future seasons, please do leave a like and comment, as it helps me to know you guys enjoyed this type of video. Now, without further ado, let's get started. Going alphabetically, we unfortunately start off with one of the weakest anime of the season, a Gadara's adventure in Isekai. The show is about a salaryman who is reincarnated into a fantasy world where he can use his power, magic, and search ability to live a new and exciting life. And yeah, that's about it. I think of myself as an Isekai enjoyer, but there's really nothing interesting or out of the ordinary going on here in the slightest. If the most interesting fact about your series is that your main character is tall, that's not a good sign. Easy F tier in my opinion. However, fret not, as we will be going from the very bottom to the very top of the tier list. A Mangaka's Weirdly Wonderful World is a story about an aspiring mangaka, Futami, and how she deals with the stress of adhering to her deadline. But while that does serve as a fantastic backdrop for the show, it's the character interactions that really make it shine. The way Futami and her assistant riff off each other deliver some great punchlines, and Futami and Sato already have some great chemistry with each other. I already like the premise, but the awesome character interactions really sold me on it, S tier. But naturally, for every workplace romance, there have to be at least 5 high school romance anime to balance for it. And The Star Brighter Than the Sun is exactly that. Sae Iwata had already fallen for Koki when they were both still in elementary school. Now that they've entered junior high, Koki has grown into a popular boy where their love finally bloomed. If you like shoujo, this might be your type of show, but even still, I have some complaints. The pacing felt extremely fast, like there were several episodes worth of the show squeezed into one episode. It also felt a bit cliché, especially the teased love triangle at the end. Since I personally also don't really enjoy the genre as a whole, I can't go any higher than C tier on this. However, a show that is definitely more up my alley is The Wild Last Boss Appeared. Overlord is a series I hold dear to my heart, and if you liked it too, chances are you will enjoy this one too. A MMO gamer awakens as a character he's created in that world. The only difference, instead of a skeleton, he reincarnates into the body of a beautiful lady. This show is by no means a reinvention of the wheel, however, some solid production and fun looking fight scenes make this something I do look forward to. D tier. To balance out that action with some slice of life, up next we have Alma-chan Wants to Be a Family. When 2 genius scientists finally managed to build the ultimate self-learning AI, they couldn't be happier. There's just one issue. Alma sees them as her parents, much to the dismay of the two, clearly haven't yet realized their feelings for each other. Overall, a very cute and comfy show with some wholesome family dynamics. Alma herself is a really fun character who reminds me a bit of Kana Kamui from Dragon Maid, only because of her looks, but because of the way she acts. Do notice that the show doesn't have the largest of budgets from its animation quality, but it's still enjoyable enough to slot into B tier for me. Next we have our first, and from what I can discern, only new harem of the season. And honestly, it is one of the more unique ones I have seen in a while. Chitose is in a Ramune bottle, is a story about Chitose, a popular and outgoing guy, and his group of friends who are all coincidentally girls with a crush on him. But that is part of what makes it so unique. Instead of the protagonist being some wishy-washy introverted self-insert, it's a popular outgoing guy where you sort of understand why so many girls are pining for him. And yet, I still can't really enjoy the show. All of the interactions feel fake or forced, and it's overdramatic for no reason. It feels like the author copied the idea of Origairu without really understanding what made the show work. So even though I like the premise, I can't give it higher than a C tier. Dad is a hero, Mom is a spirit, I'm a reincarnator on the other hand, is one of the most generic premises I've ever heard. Ellen, an 8-year-old half-spirit girl, was originally a scientist in modern-day Japan before she got reincarnated into this fantasy world. In all honesty, it just feels like the author smushed a whole lot of different isekai tropes together, call it a day, with there not being anything in particular that stands out about it. However, the one redeeming factor is that the dynamic between the different family members is quite enjoyable to watch, so I will give it a C tier as well. When an anime has an episode 0 to start off, it often means something quite interesting is going on. And that is very much also the case for Dusk Beyond the End of the World. We are introduced to a world not too dissimilar to how ours would look like in the next few years. The rampant advancement of AI has gone even further, with the wife of our main character being one of its leading causes. When you see the tags of the show, you know that everything is going a bit too well. A confession and marriage within the first episode screams that there's a plot twist coming. Yet, this episode manages to sell the audience on that relationship, making the twist at the end hit even harder. Although I'm a bit concerned with how positively AI is being portrayed in the show, overall, I'm still very excited for what it has in store for us. A tier. Most of the time, I find out about a piece of media through anime, and then, if I really enjoyed it, I go and check out any other forms of the story afterwards. Gnosia is an exception to that rule. I've played the visual novel, so this was an adaptation I've really been looking forward to, and so far, it hasn't disappointed. The easiest way to describe it would be a werewolf Among Us type show where the main story are repeating loops of the same social deduction game where the perpetrator, or Gnosia as they are called, change every round. The concept alone is already amazing. The amazing art direction and stacked voice cast got me even more excited. I don't want to spoil too much, but if you like social deduction and murder mystery shows, Gnosia is a must watch for you. This is honestly the new anime I'm looking forward most to this season, easy S tier. However, when it comes to shows that I'm least excited for, Hero Without a Class was surely on top of that list. Not only did it sound like a very generic isekai, it was also made by Studio A, which ruined the adaptation of one of my favorite stories, The Beginning After the End. Nevertheless, I wanted to give it a fair shot. My initial impression wasn't that wrong. It does have a somewhat interesting concept, with the main characters actually facing a small amount of adversity due to not having a class. But that doesn't save it from the mediocrity it possesses every other aspect. It's overall pretty generic, doesn't have anything to save it from D tier on this list. Have you ever watched Aharon is Indecipherable and thought, oh, I would ship her with Bakugo from My Hero Academia? No? Well, me neither, but in essence, this is what you're getting with Inexpressive Kashiwada and Expressive Oota. Kashiwada is a master of stoicism, and Oota, who wears his emotion on his sleeve, can't help but try to break that facade. I think it's a cute little show, some decent moments between our two leads. I don't think it does anything outstanding or out of the ordinary. My biggest criticism of the show, however, is that Oota is generally quite annoying at times, leading me to put this into C tier. Now, the next show is something of a rarity. Instead of being an adaptation of a manga, light novel, or visual novel, Let's Play is an adaptation of a Western webcomic, and I think that is pretty apparent with the first episode. Now, I'm not saying all Western animations are bad or anything, but for me personally, the story and the art style don't really mesh well, especially with there being some really jarring animation at points. Even the plot isn't really anything to write home about. It's a standard workplace drama with some reverse harem presumably snuck in as well. And it really doesn't help that the guy a lot of the first episode spans on comes across as very creepy. F tier from me, unfortunately. Now for the next one, I advise you not to pay the most attention to the title. They certainly knew what they were doing, calling it Little Miss Vampire Can't Suck Right. However, despite what the title suggests, it's a really comfy, wholesome show about a vampire girl who hasn't really learned how to suck blood from others yet. There's some cute chemistry between our two main leads, especially when considering the gap between how Kuluna acts with the rest of the class and how goofy she acts with Otori. Overall, it's not anything special, but it is quite enjoyable. B tier. Now, I am surprised we've come this far without featuring a proper villainous show. Honestly though, may I ask for one final thing, doesn't do anything particularly unique when it comes to its setup. A broken off engagement at a ball with the douchebag prince, all the nobles at his beck and call, condemning our protagonist. I've seen it so often before. However, why am I still putting it in B tier? There's only one reason, the protagonist, Scarlet. It's so refreshing how she uses violence to deal with her issues instead of putting up with all the bullshit of noble society. Her presence alone makes this show worth watching in my opinion, especially considering she also has a really cool rivalry going with the other prince, their interactions being awesome to watch as well. We've already covered an anime where a robot pretends to be a human, so why not have the opposite as well in Mechanical Marie. Former martial artist Marie has accepted a new job as a mechanical maid, except she's 100% human and her new boss despises humans. Therefore, she must keep up appearances at all times. However, I am not the biggest fan of the setup and the romance aspect feels very rushed, especially from Marie's side. I do like the main character, but otherwise the show hasn't really convinced me. I have a theory that Marie might actually turn out to actually be a robot in the future with how she's acting, and that will make it drastically more interesting in my opinion, but so far I can't give it anything higher than a C tier. We've already had one workplace romance of sorts this season, so when I found out we'd also have an office rom-com, I was genuinely surprised. It's always a nice change of pace, we get some more mature rom-coms. My Awkward Senpai definitely delivers on that front. Hanawa seems like an intense and strict worker, but internally she's just a bit awkward. When she has to train the newbie Kamigawa, she's at a complete loss. I already love the main character and the gap between how she acts on the outside and inside. There's some relatable and very funny humor at times, and I'm already enjoying the interactions between Kanama and Kamigawa. This goes into A tier for me. Next up, we have another show with a title that makes it sound pretty bad, but this time the show wouldn't defy any expectations. My friend's little sister has it in for me is exactly what it sounds like. High schooler Akitaro Oboshi thinks dating is a complete waste of time, so he can't understand for the life of him why the little sister of his friend, Iroha, clings to him and teases him so much. Iroha gives off similar vibes to Himari from Can a Boy-Girl Friendship Survive, so that already gives off bad vibes, but the pseudo-incest angle the show is taking certainly doesn't help. And of course, what would this type of show be without an unnecessary love triangle? Overall, I cannot say I'm excited for the show at all, so into D tier it goes. Now, one might imagine there surely won't be a worse show following that. Unfortunately, one would be wrong. My gift level 9999 unlimited gacha, Backstabbed in the backwater dungeon, I'm out for revenge, is exactly what it sounds like, nothing more, nothing less. It's super cliche, speeding past the setup with nothing that makes it unique or interesting in the slightest. I don't even really want to spend that much time on it, so I'll just put this in F tier and move on to the next one. However, just because the title sounds generic, that doesn't mean the show is necessarily bad. And my status as an assassin obviously exceeds the hero, aims to prove that. It is quite a familiar setup, but there are some twists that keep it exciting. Our main character doesn't get assigned a class that is seemingly weak, but actually turns out to be powerful. Assassin is just a naturally powerful class. And he doesn't get bullied or anything by his class either, which is a common trope in many of these types of shows. He's just a loner type. Saren is also a very interesting side character, one who isn't a comically evil villain or someone who just kisses up to her MC without question. And this might make me sound a bit superficial, but the show just looks very pretty compared to others of its genre. It's nothing mind-blowing, but I enjoyed it, so it gets a B tier. Speaking of nice art styles, Ninja vs Gokudo is a show that has to be mentioned with an art style that looks ripped straight off an early 2000s manga. Ninja banish evil, the Gokudo gather outcasts and commit crimes, and at the heart of the war are Shinoha, a ninja, and Kiwami, the Gokudo, bonding over anime without knowing about each other's secret identity. This is already a very interesting premise to me, but the thing that really sold me was the amazing fight scene. It was so over the top, so bloody, that I couldn't help but enjoy it. All in all, amazing episode 1, A tier. Going back to something more cute and wholesome, up next we have Past the Monster Meet My Lady. Although I initially thought the show would focus more on the food itself, instead got a villainous romance anime. There's good chemistry between our two leads from the start, bonding over them both being outcasts, and their interactions felt very cute and organic. I'm not expecting anything crazy or mind-blowing, but I think it's good for what it's trying to do, so I'll put it into B tier for now. Continuing on, we have another sort of food-themed show, plus-sized misadventures in love. And honestly, the premise intrigued me, but we get some actual commentary on how people deal with being ostracized for their weight. Well, no. This show sort of tried to have its cake and eat it too, no pun intended, in that it tried featuring a message about how people should love their body no matter the size, yet also keeps making fat jokes at the expense of the coda. Overall, the vibes were just kinda off on this one, so it gets a D tier from me. Sanda was a show I actually had zero clue what to expect from. In what can only be described as a fever dream of a concept, Sanda is a 14-year-old boy, descendant of Santa, turns into a buff, old version of Santa when he wears the color red. When his classmate Fuyumura finds out, she attacks him with a knife in order to threaten him into finding her missing friend. Just saying it out loud makes me sound insane, but it somehow works. Add the amazing concept and the fantastic main characters to a phenomenal art style and some breathtaking animation, and you get what is in my opinion the strongest episode 1 of all the new anime airing this season. So obviously, this goes into S tier. Next up, we have our first and only historical show of the season. I didn't know this before, but Shabake is apparently already quite a well-known series in Japan, being a popular novel series with a radio show, multiple live-action adaptations, and even a manga. That being said, it unfortunately didn't really manage to win me over. Ichitaro, the young master of one of Japan's top commercial stores, steps out and witnesses a murder, following which bizarre murder cases keep happening all over the town. I kind of like the concept, especially that the characters just freely interact with the yokai around them. But overall, I didn't think there was a strong enough hook to keep me interested in future episodes. C tier. Now, what would an anime season be without a good, music-focused show? Si-Vis, the Sound of Heroes, but the titular band, Si-Vis, who've taken the world by storm. However, they're secretly heroes batting against mysterious forces to save the world. Going into the blind, the fantasy and battle element was a welcome surprise, and credit where credit's due, the soundtrack is genuinely amazing. However, I do have a rather large criticism. While the cast overall is pretty amazing, the main character's one I personally didn't jive with at all. His backstory felt a bit shoehorned to try to make us care about him, but it didn't really do the trick for me. Overall, it was a pretty interesting episode, and the ending got me intrigued. It's B tier for now, but I imagine it could climb the ranks as the season goes on. Next up, we have Style of Hiroshi Nohara's Lunch, a spin-off of one of the longest running anime ever, Crayon Shinchan, which is over 1200 episodes. Coming into this with no prior knowledge of the original show, I have to say I wasn't really interested in the concept of the show, which essentially boils down to us watching a salaryman on his lunch break. But what really took me out of it was the pretty bad CGI art style that, for some reason, they used real-life photos of the food. It wasn't entirely bad, with the main character being somewhat enjoyable, but it wasn't enough for me to put it any higher than D tier. We've honestly gone too long without another isekai, so next up we have the banished court magician aims to become the strongest. As you could probably glean from the title, this show has a very cliched setup with our main character being kicked out from the hero's party. However, this one features an especially dumb main character. After being explicitly told not to become a court magician, what does he go and do? That's right, he becomes a court magician and is then surprised when the people in his party are assholes, he gets fired. I'm honestly struggling to find anything positive about this show. I guess the comedy is somewhat decent. Yeah, this is going into D tier. We've had some very unique villainous anime this season, so maybe it's time for a bit of a more regular one. But that's not meant to be a slight against the dark history of reincarnated villainess at all. Quite the opposite in fact. I'm a bit of a sucker for otome anime. However, this one does still put a twist on the genre. Konoha Sato reincarnates into another world. Not just any other world, but one she threw together as a Junie a decade ago. There are a lot of the typical wish fulfillment tropes in here, but they sort of work because, well, that's how the original story was written. This show is nothing out of the ordinary, but if you like the genre, you will enjoy this. I do, so it goes into B tier for me. Considering we've had an anime about humans eating monsters, I think having the opposite is only fair. Hinako is a girl whose flesh and blood are said to be exceptionally delicious by monsters. Shiori, a mermaid, vows to protect Hinako until the time comes where she devours her. But the thing is, Hinako doesn't seem all too scared by that prospect. This show is probably the one that nailed the atmosphere the most for its first episode. The oppressive melancholy, the way the show takes its time to show us just how dead inside Hinako feels. Add that to the beautiful art style and breathtaking soundtrack, and you have what I consider to be a heavy contender for anime of the season if it continues on like this. Easy S tier. Going from one amazing show to the next, we have Tojima wants to be a Kamen Rider. Even at age 40, Tojima still dreams of becoming a Kamen Rider. Just when it seems like that dream will never come to fruition, he suddenly gets caught up in a series of shocker-related robberies. Now, I want to preface this by saying that I've never watched a single episode of anything Kamen Rider related before, but this might lead me to change that. This first episode was genuinely amazing, striking the perfect balance between campy and hype, making me already fall in love with that main character. So, with back-to-back entries into that tier, we have another S tier. With the title of this next one, Touring After the Apocalypse, you might think we're back to something a bit more calm, and you would be half right. Yoko and Irie travel through a post-apocalyptic Japan, taking pictures of famous places overrun by nature. So for the most part, it has that comfy vibe down pat with some really beautiful looking scenery. But then, in the middle of the episode, they get attacked by a tank shooting missiles at them, and it turns out that Irie is a cyborg herself as well. The two main characters have some nice chemistry as well, and the show does have me intrigued as to what actually caused the apocalypse. Overall, a very enjoyable episode and putting it in A tier. Now, I've already talked about the best shows of the season, the worst shows, and everything in between, but if you want to know what the most disappointing show of the season is, well, look no further than Wandance. Kabo is a high school student with a stutter who struggles to express himself, who finds himself drawn to Wanda, who dances without worrying how others perceive her. Before ripping into the show, I do want to highlight the thing it does well. Wanda is an awesome character. I expected her to be a typical kudere, but she proved to be much more expressive throughout. Kabo is an awesome character too. Stutters are something that are very rarely actually well used in anime. However, all those things get thrown out of the window the moment you see them start dancing. I'm not like your typical anime fan hating on CGI just for the sake of it, but here it is generally immersion breaking, going from some beautiful 2D animation to the abomination that is this CGI. And I wouldn't even be this harsh on it if this wasn't literally a show about dancing. I'm not gonna be so mean as to put it into the lowest tier, it can't go any higher than D tier either. If you're a furry, I'm sure you're already watching With You Our Love Will Make It Through. But even if you aren't one, I highly encourage you to watch this. Mari runs into a beast folk on her way to school. She's surprised at first. After all, there's still a lot of discrimination against them. But the more she gets to know him, the more she gets interested in him and his body. I can say that I'm the furthest thing from a furry myself, but this is generally just a very good romance story, with some amazing chemistry between our two leads and a generally gorgeous art style. I also think there's some serious potential that this show could deal with some serious topics like discrimination. The spicy scene at the end does have me a bit concerned, but despite that, I will give it an A tier. As we approach the end of this video, with this one being the last anime being covered, we find ourselves with another rom-com show, Yano-Kuns Ordinary Days. Kyoko Yoshida is an over-anxious girl who can't help but be worried when Yano comes into school every day with new bruises. She continues tending to him, these two naturally grow closer. The show has really cute vibes and reminded me a bit of Horimiya and how fast our main characters realize crushes on each other. But the thing that really sold me on it was the comedy. The gimmick of Yano continuously being injured leads to some very funny scenes, and that comedy is especially elevated by Yoshida's reaction to the injuries. Overall, a very enjoyable first episode, so I'm putting it into A tier. Writing this video has made me realize how many seasonals there truly are. Actually giving all of them a try has led me to discover some gems that I probably wouldn't have given a shot otherwise. Nonetheless, I don't think it's sustainable or realistic for me to watch all of these shows from beginning to end, so some of them will have to be dropped rather quickly. However, I do hope this video has helped you pick what shows you want to watch this season. Of course, this is all just my opinion, so if you disagree with any rankings, whether I rank them too high or too low, do let me know. This video took me a lot of time and effort to write and make, but despite that, it was also a lot of fun to make. So if you guys enjoyed it, I might make more of these for future seasons of anime. Thanks for watching.